All right, hey guys, welcome. Really excited to be talking about page experience today. I've got VP of SEO Joe Robledo, and we're going to be talking about page experience. Now, Joe, you just wrote an article for the 97 Floor blog. It covers a lot of stuff in depth on page experience. So let's just start from there. Like, give us the rundown on what exactly is page experience.
For sure. So page experience, I mean, it from a theoretical perspective, right? It's essentially what it sounds like. It's the experience users have on page. But in relation to this recent update that Google is going to be releasing sometime next year, it's in relation to observable metrics that they are putting together and sharing with SEO practitioners. So it's something that like we as SEO practitioners can look at in order to better improve the experience that our users have on page.
Okay, so you brought up that it's measurable, because when I hear page experience,
Yeah.
it sounds very amorphous. But I know that Google has produced some actual measurements to go along with it. Can you talk about Core Web Vitals?
Yeah, for sure. So Core Web Vitals are a subsidiary of Web Vitals, and Web Vitals is part of an initiative that Google is launching in order to better assess page experience.
Okay.
So Core Web Vitals, like for all intents and purposes, kind of comes down to just three essential elements of the page experience that Google is measuring. One of them is loading, interactive capability, and visual stability. And with those three elements combined, it will give us a better idea for what like the experience of the user is on our site.
Okay. So those are measurable, right? Like there are numbers assigned to those.
Yeah.
Where can SEOs go to start implementing or figuring out how to benchmark their Core Web Vitals today?
For sure. So I think the best place to go is probably going to be your Search Console account.
Okay.
Google's recently changed their page speed report that they used to have there and switched it out for the Core Web Vitals report. Now, in some ways, people kind of see page speed and the Core Web Vitals as a similar thing. In some ways it is, but there's a lot of things that are different. And I think when we look at that report, you'll see those differences. So it's going to be arranged in a similar way to the page speed stuff, where it's going to be like your major errors that you need to fix, the warnings, and then the stuff that's good to go. It's set up in a similar way, except it's all going to be around those three different elements we talked about earlier.
Okay. So SEOs can already start benchmarking that right now. Like it's in Google Search Console today.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean they have to start taking action today? Or should they be taking action today?
I think so. I think if we think back to May of 2019, Google had announced that they were going to be switching to a mobile first index July 1. And so back then, like I think it was important that specialists took some time to jump in and really make sure that their site was mobile friendly, so that when that indexation happened, they were good to go. And it's a similar thing here. The good thing is that Google has already said that when they finally roll it out, it's going to be about 6 months. They'll give us a 6 months heads up,
right.
But it's not going to be happening this year. So we have at least to the end of this year, and then 6 months after that, or maybe before. But either way, Google's going to keep us informed.
Yeah, that's a step in a big direction. Because you and I have worked together doing SEO for a very long time, and I feel like even as recent as like 5 years ago, SEO felt more like we're kind of like in a fight with Google, and it was like we need information to do a better job, and Google was like, just do good stuff, and things will work out. But this is a step in the right direction. Why do you think they're moving in that direction?
I think for me, it probably comes down to the fact that they see this as a better version of the relationship between them and SEO practitioners.
Okay.
Mostly, and this is my personal thoughts, right? Nothing definitive from what Google said, but I think that Google understands that what SEO specialists do at the end of the day is ultimately going to help them with their final outcome that they're trying to achieve, right? So the better we can get our search results based on the guidance they're giving, the better their offering is to the people who use their search engine. So
right.
I think there's a lot of benefit that comes from them being more forthright with everything that they're doing, just as they have been recently, And so I think this change in that dynamic is pretty helpful for a lot of reasons, but not the least of which is that it gives us a better understanding for what the strategy should be going forward.
Yeah. So you brought this up. They said that the soonest it will be is 2021, but they will give us at least 6 months notice when they do have a date.
Mhm.
So if it's January, we'll hear about it in a month. If it's later in the year, we'll hear about it 6 months before that. Does that give you any apprehension? Like, does that make you worry? Like, man, this is gonna be groundbreaking. Like, they're giving us 6 months. Is this gonna shake everything up?
I mean, potentially. I feel like with this great of a change, there's always that chance of it being like groundbreaking, right? And I think a lot of SEOs had that same thought about mobile first indexing, right? Where it's like, well, say goodbye to desktop. It's all going to be a mobile now. And I don't think that's the case. But I do think that when we look at how our users interact with our content and we pay attention to that more, I wouldn't be shocked if everything that we do and how we do it changes because of the innovation that's needed in order to improve that page speed experience.
Yeah. So page speed it's called page experience right now, but
Mhm.
a lot of the metrics associated with it are really similar to page speed.
Yeah.
So to me right now we have 3 core web vitals, and then Google has said underneath that umbrella there are also other metrics or signals that involve page experience.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think those, I guess I'm asking, where are the lines that we should be reading in between? Because we have these 3 metrics,
Sure.
but it's called page experience.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any early bets on what we could start doing with our content or the format or the architecture, things like that, to accommodate a better page experience for users?
Sure. Yeah, no, and I think that's a great question. And I feel like for me, I would start with the technical configuration of your on-page experience, right? Start there. And what that means is making sure that your page loads well, that it's stable, that you're able to meet all the metrics that Google has given in their Core Web Vitals report, and be able to do more than that, right? Not just barely meet it. So that's from the technical side of things. When it comes to actual content itself and how you write it, what you put in it, I think there's going to be a lot put on the shoulders of content creators to make something that not only appeals to those technical specifications, but also like really innovates on how they meet the needs of the users that are coming to the site. An example, and I mentioned this in the article that we wrote, but if you have a chart that lists out the times that people need to hit for their age range in order to get into the Boston Marathon, that's one way of presenting the solution to the needs of those people who are getting to your site. Another way of doing that is changing that into a little calculator,
Right.
and allowing them to have more interactive time with that chart in a more specific way. So that kind of change and those kind of innovations is what I anticipate being kind of the bigger thrust that a lot of content creators will need to make going forward.
So to me, that's a great idea. Like turning a chart into a calculator
Mm-hmm.
is very cool to talk about. But people probably look at that and are like, that's developer resources, and how are we going to do that? So I foresee within the next 6 to 12 months, a lot of SEOs are going to be coming to their business leaders and be saying like, look, we need to invest in more engaging content.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the times that does mean better writing, and other times it means complete drop a bomb and rebuild what the blog looks like, what the site architecture looks like. What advice can you give to the SEOs or the business leaders who are going to have to field questions about, hey, we got to change things up, and that's going to cost some resources?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the first thing is just to understand it's going to be worth it. I think I keep going back to the mobile first thing, but it's true. Like if people were to have heard that warning and heard that notification and be like, I don't know if it's worth it. That's a lot of dev time, a lot of dev money. Like maybe we don't go mobile first, or make ourselves more mobile friendly. I think every business has the right to do that kind of a thing, but Google's telling us that they're doing this change for a reason, and so if we want to make sure we're on top of it and we're doing everything we can to stay ahead of the curve, I think it's just important to recognize it's going to be worth it. Second thing I would say is it doesn't have to be all at once. It can be in increments. I think the reason we have such a long road or runway to launch allows for us to take that time and really start now to make those changes.
That's cool. So are there things that SEOs should be doing that are maybe outside their wheelhouse right now? Like when I hear this page experience, to me, it's being messaged toward SEOs, but to me, I feel like CRO, like conversion rate optimization,
Sure.
has to play into this. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. I definitely agree. I think there's going to be a lot, because I think something that specialists or practitioners can look at is their bounce rate, average dwell time, all that stuff. But that goes, like when you do CRO, it takes that a step further, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not only saying, hey, how can we improve the time on page, but we're saying, how can we better meet the needs of the people who are coming to our site and do it in a dynamic way that really does get to the heart of their concern or the heart of their needs when they're coming to us.
Yeah, that's cool. And it really just sounds like in general, SEOs are going to have to take steps out of their comfort zone, whether it's
Right.
talking to their leaders about different resources or priorities,
Sure.
and even adopting new skills and working with other teams.
Yeah, and I think that's like a trend that's not uncommon, right? I think when we look at the development and progression of the SEO industry over time,
Sure.
We haven't been, able to sit on our laurels and just be like, well, we'll just do links, like, and that's all SEO is now. We have to do, like, we have to make sure that if we're working with a site in React, that we have all the correct elements in place in order to make it SEO friendly, or if we're using, there's new technologies always coming out,
Sure.
right? And if we want to leverage those technologies and do it in a way that serves our purposes, we have to learn, we have to be able to develop. And I think the similar thing applies to what we're doing here with on-page experience.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. The blog post that you wrote covers a lot more, so I encourage you guys to go read that. Let me just wrap this up. Like, what are the one, maybe two tips that you would give? Like, if I'm an SEO and today's the first day I'm hearing about page experience, what am I doing next week?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing I would do is learn, right? So take some time to read through Google's blog posts when it comes to their announcement around Web Vitals, what exactly that means, what are the 3 core elements of those core Web Vitals, and how we can make sure that we're on top of it. The next thing I would do is take some time to look through the Google Analytics data for your site and get a sense for how your pages are performing currently, right? And if there's any page that's below average, time on page for the entire site, I would start there and say, like, hey, from these pages, what can we do to make these more engaging for our user? Obviously, time on page isn't the only metric to measure that, but it's a metric to help us do that. And if you're doing that along with meeting the technical specifications Google's laying out and making sure that's part of everything you do going forward, I think that'll go a long way for your business.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then since Google's given in Search Console and with Lighthouse has been able to say, like, look, you can run your benchmarks right now.
Yeah.
I'd imagine it'd be a good idea to, even if you don't, your action plan isn't all the way solid, saying, like, just so you know, this is where we land. I'm coming up with a strategy to improve that,
Yeah.
but here's where, because if you're in the red right now, it's a lot. Google's made it so easy. It's like, we're in the red, we want to be in the green.
Yeah.
And leadership understands that, and I think
Exactly.
Google's made that very clear.
Yeah, I would also start looking into CRO as well.
Sure.
Like, with this time that we have to get there, I think it's going to be super important for us to use that time wisely to not only, again, we've hit all this already, but just really kind of expand your skill set and really make good use of that time so that as you're making these incremental changes, you're able to sustain them over time.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Joe, I appreciate you talking with me today about page experience. This is a conversation that we're going to be having. Page experience, we have ample time to be talking about it, but this is not going to be our first dialogue about it.
For sure.
And I know you've already implemented page experience into 97 Floor site audits. And so as we get more information back from our clients in real time, I'd love to sit down and do another one of these and see, like, here are the couple of issues that we see most common. Here's how we're resolving them. I think that'll be valuable for the whole community.
For sure. And something else I just want to make sure is mentioned is Google, in their announcement and in their documentation, they said that they will expect to be making changes to these metrics
Right.
over time. So it's not a one and done type deal, right? Where we just say, okay, we get what it is now and that's all there is to it. We're going to need to stay on top of it, right? And so that's something we're going to be doing at 97 Floor for sure, and making sure it's incorporated into all the processes we're doing. So yeah, I think it's going to be really awesome to see what happens as a result of those processes, and when it comes to, like, the insights we pull from how users are interacting with sites now that we've optimized them for those core vitals.
I dig it. Well, thank you for this, and
Yeah.
thanks in advance for the future ones.
Oh yeah.
Stay tuned to the 97 Floor blog. We're going to be posting all kinds of updates as we near the launch of Page Experience. And if you want to be staying completely up to date, sign up for the newsletter. It's once a month, and we'll send you the best of this and other advice that we're collecting throughout the month. Till next time, thanks for stopping by. Thanks, Joe.
You got it. We'll see you guys.